Alright, y'all, we are back with more A&L podcast. Osman, tell us what we are talking about now.
So we are talking about the corruption of America and how pedophiles run America. Uh, Not necessarily the case overall 100% of the time. However, today we will be discussing Elaine Maxwell.
Elaine.
Elaine Maxwell, and how, despite the fact that she was a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein, and
Entangled
is
with Jeffrey Epstein, if you will.
despite
I
the
stand by that
fact,
statement. I stand by that statement.
but August isn't a home, but Jeffrey isn't a home wrecker though. Jeffrey is not a home wrecker though. You got to remember that.
He's a playground wrecker. Stop.
Oh my goodness. Oh shit. Oh, this man said he's a school wrecker. He's a kindergarten wrecker, bro.
Anyway, you were saying?
uh, it just takes me back to that time you sent me that meme. If it was COVID-15, then R. Kelly would have dipped. Yo. Okay, so and a general amount of corruption, in the White House and in the U.S. government currently. So if you don't know, Elaine Maxwell was a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein, who had a lot of influence and power, not only over the elites in the government, but also the elites on the interwebs. They had a lot of money, and they had a significant amount of power. And recently, Jeffrey Epstein died. And since his death, it has been uncovered that he was basically running Pedophile Island, like shit that makes R. Kelly look like a D-list pedophile. This man was sex trafficking little girls. It was pretty disgusting, to be honest. And one of his close associates that's come into question is Elaine Maxwell.
Elaine. It's a G.
Ghislaine?
Yeah.
Oh, Ghislaine. Okay, is Ghislaine Maxwell. Oftentimes, and I agree with the sentiment that if somebody commits a crime, any and all people who saw the crime take place or facilitated the crime and did nothing to stop the crime
or took part in it, Elaine, or who took part in it,
are just as guilty as the people who were, the main ones engaging in the problematic behavior. Only one problem. As stated earlier, that whole kind of group of people, Ghislaine and Jeffrey, have a lot of influence and power, and they are holding all these politicians and powerful people by their nuts, or vaginas, whichever one you want. I gotta be inclusive, bro. I gotta be inclusive.
Yes, sir. Hey,
and
all the hate towards Ghislaine aside, she's a pioneer in female sex trafficking. Shout out to
that is again, you gotta be inclusive, right? Clearly there was a lack in demographic, right? Okay, how do we solve black people committing crimes? If white people commit crimes too, no, I'm playing. Anyway, so but yeah, basically none of the politicians are talking about it. And what's disappointing about that is that they go out of their way to quote unquote cancel or go after people who do disgusting sexual acts, but all of a sudden, once their sort of money is on the line, once their power and influence is at risk, we see a very different side of politicians. And it goes into the importance of questioning and the importance of what exactly is going on behind the scenes and what should we know about? And I think Naomi has a little bit more knowledge on the situation, so I'll pass it to Naomi.
All right. So speaking on politics in general, I feel like we have to acknowledge that politicians, or at least the ones in the limelight, make just as much, if not more, shady decisions than regular people. Especially like because there's a new scandal every day, like from irrelevant Republicans calling the GOAT AOC some
Oh my good! Did you just say the
profanity.
goat?
AOC's the GOAT. AOC's the GOAT.
Yo,
Anyway, we'll get into that later, but AOC's the GOAT.
the goat, because
Look, policies aside, she put the man in their place. That's all I gotta say. She's the GOAT for that.
how is she the goat?
Moving on. So, what exactly do you want me to speak to
I mean,
when
she
it
bad
comes
though.
to Ghislaine? Stop it. When it comes to Ghislaine Maxwell,
I think what's also interesting is that people don't really understand how money moves. How could why are they pandering towards these got people who don't even or who are just one vote? People don't understand that a lot of similar to colleges, a lot of politicians, a lot of the money comes from donors. And so a lot of their biggest amounts of income come from donors and people who are willing to give. And so when you dry those streams up as a politician, you don't really have any other revenue. It's hard to work a part-time job when you're, in some sort of position of office. And so donors are viewed as very important kind of people. And so it's also a matter of like, is it okay that donors with their own malicious intentions are the main source of revenue for politicians?
especially things like super PACs, they hold politicians by their good old genitals when it comes to stuff they want to do.
Very inclusive of you.
Of course. But I feel like that's the thing with institutions in general. Like we're talking colleges,
Yeah.
private institutions, politicians. The main things that they do are motivated by money. And hey, don't hate the player, don't hate the player, hate the game. True. However, when you're doing very shady stuff just for a check, when your job is supposed to be educating the youth or enacting policies that will make the lives of people that you promised to make better actually better, and you're forsaking all that for a check, questionable, if not to say the least.
Problem with that statement in that context is that these motherfuckers make the game, right? That's the problem, right? It's like, okay, don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay, well, who created the game? Oh, they created the game so that they could win the game.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
And that is the point.
One thing I rewatched the 13th because I watched it a few years ago, but I didn't get to really do a deep dive into it. I watched the 13th with my girlfriend, and I talked about it with my mom. And I wanted to also speak on the bipartisan nature of this corruption. I was talking with my mom about racism and sort of my evolved views on racism and how, I used to see President Trump as a stark racist, and then I didn't really see him as a racist, and now I am sort of in this place where I see him as a racist because it panders to a vast majority of America. But something I thought about that became clear to me, especially in this thing with Elaine, because you see not even Democrats are speaking out, and those are the guys, cancel all the pedophiles, we're all about keeping people safe and all this stuff and safe spaces and stuff. No one's speaking out. Not Biden, nobody. And
on either side.
Exactly.
Pedophilia is the most bipartisan thing to happen to politics.
But no, so one thing that was interesting that I thought about was when people talk about the reason why Donald Trump shouldn't be president, right? the two things they talk about are, well, he's racist and he, uh, you know, he sexually assaults people, right?
Which is true.
Which is true, right? But what I'm realizing is those two things are reasons that he is not qualified for president, but they're not reasons why he's better than Biden. You see the difference there?
Which is true. Which is also true.
He's not, because Biden is also proven to be a racist. Hillary is proven to be a racist. Apparently, I'm a super predator. My fucking vote shit. I'm a super predator, bro. I ain't even know. That sounds so sick. But enacting racist policies back in the day, and even when it comes to Trump, and for anyone who's in our chat who doesn't believe that Trump is racist, a quick example, I guess the easiest thing I could give is if racism is the treatment of people of a different race differently, right? Treating people of a different race worse. Whole thing with Brett Kavanaugh, I don't know what went on, but notice how in the case of Brett Kavanaugh, Trump was very supportive of Brett Kavanaugh because he didn't feel that there was evidence to substantiate the claim.
Allegations against him.
Exactly. Which may have been true, right? However, notice when it came to the Central Park five black men who were accused of raping one white girl, there was also very little substantial evidence, and it was very much just a little bit more than hearsay that made international news, and Trump was ready. He was like, we should reinstate the death penalty, because he was, without any suitable evidence, convinced that this happened. So notice when it's white politicians who can benefit him, innocent until proven guilty. Black men, get their asses out of here. Even Biden, and I'm willing to accept maybe to a certain extent Biden has changed his views, I guess. Although his recent comments on what it means to be black give me doubts. You look at Biden, you look at how he supported busing, segregated busing back in the day, and things of that nature. You look at even how Hillary Clinton was a key part of the war on drugs, which destroyed black people. And I think sort of tying everything back in together, these things about corruption and racism and child molestation, unfortunately, while they reflect poorly on the individual candidates, they're not quite reasons to vote for a different candidate, because they're not quite reasons why the other person is better, because they both do it. And it was an unfortunate reality that I kind of came to. But this whole thing with Elaine and seeing how it was bipartisan, that everyone was susceptible to corruption at every level, sort of showed me that, like, while it proves that Trump is corrupt when he says, I wish her well, I wish her well, it also proves corrupt that Biden is not saying anything about it, that any of the Democratic officials are not saying anything, any of the Republican officials are not saying anything. And so just kind of keep that in mind when you're deciding, who you're going to vote for.
And that's a good point. Also, you are never going to get this woman's name right.
Oh, Ghislaine?
Okay, I think it's Ghislaine, more like down the lane kids. Anyway, yeah.
Oh my goodness!
I definitely never miss.
Oh my, Ghislaine was a clown. If y'all didn't understand like before, Naomi is a clown. I mean, it's fine. Like, I don't got nothing against clowns. Like, I ain't got nothing against Clown World. Like, it's fine. But if y'all didn't know, this should be proof. Naomi's a clown. Good God.
again, I also stand by that statement. All right, I feel like we good. Anything we want to add?